Polarising, controversial, powerful. It's how Alan Jones has always been described, but today those words take on new meaning. The 83-year-old charged with indecently assaulting or touching 8 young men over 2 decades. Some of his alleged victims worked for him, others he'd just met, and tonight we learn one is a high-profile sporting star.
Alan Belford Jones, in custody in the back of a police car, escorted by Strikeforce detectives, under arrest. Accused of a series of sexual touching offences, the 83-year-old was taken from his plush Circular Quay apartment overlooking Sydney Harbour this morning. Police Commissioner Karen Webb.
This is a result of a very long, thorough, protracted investigation.
It was the end of a 9-month investigation by police from the Child Abuse Squad.
I wish to commend the victims and their bravery in coming forward.
Other people may come forward, and we are anticipating that other people may come forward.
Headed by ignorant union leadership, from king of the airwaves to a police station, it's been a monumental fall from grace.
I'm not going to dwell here on the allegations made about me, other than to say that I refute them entirely and the inferences associated with them.
Just a few months ago, he publicly declared his innocence.
The Get Jones campaign is nothing new in my life.
Once considered among the most influential voices in Australian media, this afternoon Jones was charged with a total of 24 offences, allegedly involving 8 victims between 2001 and 2019. Assistant Commissioner Michael Fitzgerald.
We will allege the accused knew some of them personally, some of them professionally, and we'll also allege that some of the victims, when the alleged offence took place, was the first time they ever met the accused.
What have you got to say to
Strikeforce Bonifin was formed after several men detailed allegations claiming the once powerful shock jock groped or inappropriately touched victims without their consent. Those initial allegations involved 5 men. Jones denied all the claims and said his legal team was planning action against 9 newspapers for the demonstrably false allegations. Our client denies ever having indecently assaulted the persons referred to in your letter, and your suggestion that he has is scandalous, grossly offensive and seriously defamatory of him.
Historical matters such as this are incredibly hard to investigate and bring before the courts.
Strikeforce detectives have seized a number of electronic devices from Jones's apartment. Child Abuse Unit Commander Detective Superintendent Linda Howlett.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the investigators for all the hard work that they've done in regard to this challenging investigation. But more importantly, I would like to thank the victims for their courage that they've shown in coming forward and reporting to police.
His is a life that's been mostly played out in the media. At 26, Alan Jones was appointed Head of English at the King's School, Parramatta. He soon became a speechwriter for the then Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser and even made a play in politics himself, twice failing as a Liberal candidate.
And I hope that I've contributed something to the club, and I hope next year I can contribute more.
Jones had a string of victories as coach of the Wallabies, but he was far from successful as coach of the Balmain Tigers rugby league team.
I'm defending Alan Jones and Alan Jones's honesty and Alan Jones's faith in himself, and I'm defending the truth.
In 1988, Jones was arrested at one of London's most well-known gay beats in Soho. Soon after, Jones spoke to Liz Hayes on a current affair.
Obviously, people draw their own conclusions, makes all sorts of statements, but I have to live with that. That is the price I have to pay for the law taking its course.
He was charged with outraging public decency and committing an indecent act.
I have to practice now what I've preached on many occasions, and that is that you have to face up to things and fight. You have to realise that often there are circumstances placed in your path that are beyond your control, And in the face of those circumstances, you've got to show capacity and character and all sorts of things I believe in, but you hope.
The charges were later dropped.
That I am proudly a moral person and a decent person, and I've maintained that morality and decency right throughout my life, and I haven't betrayed either of those standards in anything I've ever done.
Alan Jones went on to write newspaper columns and had a national TV program, but it was on Sydney radio where he wielded his power, with politicians and sports stars on speed dial.
But I thank now everyone who's supported me and sent their good wishes to me at this time. I'm Alan Jones.
This morning, just before 8 o'clock, police came knocking. Jones was driven to a police station in Sydney's CBD. After being charged, Jones was granted bail to face court in December. Tonight, it's understood he's holed up at his luxury apartment in the Toaster at Circular Quay.
I really place great store by not only what I say, but by living by what I say, and I've all times sought to do that, and I haven't betrayed that at any stage in the recent past or the past. And the test now, of course, is as to whether or not that's going to be believed.
You can say if you're right.
Only time and the courts will tell.
Did you do it?
Well, our crime editor Simon Boda joins me now. Simon, you've been following this story for a long time. It's been a 9-month investigation. Why did detectives move on Jones today?
Ali, I believe there was a suggestion that he may have been making plans to travel to the US for a holiday, possibly, we don't quite know. But his bail conditions now mean that he's had to surrender his passport, so he can't go anywhere. I understand that Jones would have had an inkling this was coming, but he would have had no idea that the police would be knocking at 7:45 this morning.
OK, so there are 8 alleged victims. So the range in age and also the way in which they knew him. What more do you know about that?
Well, we do know, Ali, that the youngest alleged victim at the time of the offence was 17. We know that, and we've been told by the police, that he worked with some of the alleged victims, he socialised with some of the alleged victims, and some of the alleged victims he'd actually only ever met once. There was only one occasion that he met them. And amongst all those victims, we're now starting to hear, and I understand that one of those men was a high-profile sporting personality. Now, we can't name that personality, and in fact we can't, because for 2 reasons. We can't identify a victim of a sexual crime unless they consent to it being released. So we've got to wait and see where that goes.
Yeah, and we shouldn't as well. We understand too that anyone coming forward making these accusations and allegations, that's a really big step to do, and privacy is what they deserve. So Alan Jones, let's talk about him for a moment, because he was, the man that all politicians and business leaders, I mean, they feared him. If he called, you took that call, and obviously he doesn't still wield that kind of power, but he still has many powerful and influential friends. Is that a concern for investigators?
Power and influence, Ali, and I think he still does wield that sort of power and influence. At the media conference today, the detectives were asked whether there was a concern that attempts might be made to influence or intimidate witnesses or victims because of the high profile of this particular matter. Now, Jones is subject, as I said earlier, to bail conditions, which means he can't approach, harass any of the victims, and that's part of his bail conditions, and if he breaks that, obviously he could be locked up. But as you rightly said, he has powerful and influential friends and supporters who have come out and backed him in the past when people have stood up and spoken out against him. So obviously police have got to have that on their radar as the investigation continues, to ensure that all the witnesses, all the victims, feel that they are not being intimidated in any way, shape or form.
I mean, this process will take a long time to play out, obviously, but I mean, if he's convicted, he will likely end up in jail. Sure
will. And I've been told that by a number of police today, that those charges he's facing, aggravated indecent assault, for instance, and he's got 11 counts of that has a maximum jail term of 7 years if he's convicted. Now, obviously, we're a long way from conviction. He hasn't entered a plea, and we don't know where that's going to go. And I think we've just got to wait and see where and what he does in December when he faces court.
Right. Well, it's been a really big day and a long 9 months by the sounds of it.
It has.
Appreciate your time, Simon.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alan.